All right, hello everybody. We're going to talk about Punnett squares, and I'm going to be looking at the basic Mendelian genetics problem set right now. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about what Punnett squares are, so I thought I would go over them really quickly. You should for sure speed this video up, so I'm talking as fast as possible. The idea of a Punnett square is to be able to show you what are the probabilities when we combine two different parents, what the odds are of what kinds of babies they're going to have. So on the outside of the Punnett square, we put their possible gametes, which would be their sex cells like sperm or egg. And let me see if I can draw that. Unfortunately, I didn't grab my Chromebook, so I'm going to have to draw with my finger, and these are going to be seriously bad drawings. But watch what I draw here. So I'm going to draw a little sperm here that represents the dad, and these are his possible sperm that he could donate to his child. And then over here, I'm going to draw the mom's eggs. And does it matter whether the mom is on the side or across the top? It doesn't matter. But just making a point that when this egg unites with this, when this sperm unites with this egg, then we put the baby right here. So let's use some letters to represent the genes. So anytime we have a dominant trait, we're going to use a capital letter. Let's use a capital A for an example. So capital A is the dominant trait, and lowercase a is the recessive trait. I can think of right now a trait that would be the letter A. There's a trait called achondroplasia dwarfism, which causes little people. And it is a dominant trait. So being average height is a lowercase a, and having achondroplasia dwarfism is a capital A. So there's a really famous couple who does a TV show called Little People Big World. And the parents in that both have achondroplasia. So let me give you just an example of what their DNA might be. Both of them are heterozygous. Remember, the prefix hetero means two different. So if we take, let's say the dad, I don't mean let's say, the dad has a capital A that he inherited from one parent and a lowercase a that he inherited from another parent. So his sperm will have half of his DNA because gametes always have half the DNA. So he's going to donate every time either a capital A in his sperm or a lowercase a in his sperm. Because that's half of his DNA. The mom has achondroplasia, so likewise, half of her eggs will carry a capital A gene, and half of her eggs will carry a lowercase a gene. Now, to be clear, that's just one gene of thousands of other genes that are also carried in this couple's sperm or eggs. But we're just focusing on the achondroplasia gene. So that's why I'm only writing the letter A. There's lots of other genes that are carried in the sperm or egg, but we're just looking at this one trait. And so what we want to know, the question we're going to try to solve with this Punnett square what are the odds that they'll have children that are normal height? What are the odds that they'll have children that have achondroplasia? So what we do is we make these two intersect. If this sperm fertilized this egg, then the baby would be capital A, capital A. Give me just a second to show that. There we go. And then if this sperm intersected with this egg, we would have a baby that was capital A, lowercase a. And a lot of times my students say, how do I know whether to make the capital letter first or last? It doesn't matter. You could write it big A, little a, or little a, big A. It still means the same thing. Force of habit for me in the English language, we always put the capital letter first, so I always write the capital letter. And I found it helps to keep me organized when there is a capital and a lowercase if I always do it in the same way. So now we take a look. These are the possible babies that couple could have. And so what we want to look at is what are the odds? And the odds are called, so there's a genotype or a phenotype. The genotype is what are the odds that they'll inherit certain genes. The phenotype is what are the odds that they'll inherit a characteristic. So they're subtly different. So I could ask, what are the odds that the genotype will be little a, little a? And so we look at the 4 boxes and we see that only one of the 4 boxes is little a, little a. So we say 25% chance that they're going to have a baby that's little a, little a. Now let's just think really quickly what little a means. Those are 2 of the normal height genes. So those babies, even though both parents have achondroplasia, those babies, any of the babies that they have that inherit the 2 little a's, they're going to be normal height. Now they could be tall or short, but they're not going to have achondroplasia. So then the question is, what percent of their kids are going to be heterozygous? How about that? So then we would see this is heterozygous. It's one, a large and a little, and a large and a small here. So that means that 50% of their offspring are likely to be capital A, lowercase a. A different way that we could ask is what percent of their children are going to be normal height? And we would say the odds say 25%. Now, another thing that I'll say off to the side is that with one couple, the odds really aren't relevant. It's like flipping a coin and saying, flipping a coin twice and saying, oh, you're going to get heads 50% of the time and tails 50% of the time. I could get two heads and beat the odds very easily. It's not until you look at hundreds of coin flips that we really see, oh, sure enough, 50% are heads and 50% are tails. Likewise, it's not until we have an entire population of individuals, in this case, who have achondroplasia, that are mating, that we can say, okay, yeah, a quarter of their babies are actually normal height. This percentage of their babies have achondroplasia. So any one family, the odds are a little bit not as meaningful as they would be for the whole population of people who have achondroplasia. Okay, last thing, just because it's kind of interesting. Achondroplasia is caused by a dominant trait. So I could ask what percent of their children are going to have achondroplasia? Well, it's a little bit of a trick answer. These two both have the capital A. And remember that the dominant trait hides the recessive trait. So there's no blending that happens here. This individual, this baby, has achondroplasia. Likewise, this baby has achondroplasia. It hides that little recessive A, so they have achondroplasia. The part that's really sad about this is there are these babies that inherit a capital A from both parents, and that's actually a fatal condition. So the question would be, what percent of their kids would inherit achondroplasia? And we would say 50%. And then the last question would be, what percent of their children are not expected to live, are expected to die as miscarriages? And we would say 25% for that. Okay, let's try a totally different but similar idea. Let's do something like cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a recessive trait this time. Oh, do y'all notice what I'm wearing? I got my Star Wars blankie on because it's really cold in my room where I'm sitting right now, so I'm wearing a blankie. Sorry. Okay, so let's try cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is caused by a recessive trait. And let's just, for whatever reason, let's use the letter N for normal or no cystic fibrosis. And then the lowercase n means they do have cystic fibrosis. So let's say again that we have two parents that are carriers. A carrier is someone who is normal or doesn't have the genetic disorder, but they have it hidden in their DNA so they can pass it on to their offspring. So let's say we have two parents that are like that. So we would say one parent, this is just like the achondroplasia. We have one parent that's a capital, except that we're not doing that. We're doing the letter N. One parent that's capital N, lowercase n, and the other parent that's also capital N, lowercase n. And we're going to see that the Punnett square looks very, very similar, right? We'll have one child that's big N, one or two kids that are big N, little n, and then one child that's got two little n's. But because this trait is recessive, we have very different outcomes here. So the genotypes, it's still going to be the same percentages that we had with the achondroplasia. The genotypes just tells us what letters they got. So in the achondroplasia Punnett square, 25% were homozygous recessive, 50% were heterozygous, and 25% were homozygous dominant. In this case, in the cystic fibrosis one, however, because it's a recessive trait, the only individuals that actually get cystic fibrosis are these two here that never inherited the dominant trait. So we would say 25% get cystic fibrosis, and 75%, these guys here, never get cystic fibrosis. Now, these individuals here, they can never pass the gene on to their offspring, but these two children, children that are represented by these two boxes, they are carriers like their parents. So if they marry or have children with somebody who is also a carrier, there's a chance that their children could have cystic fibrosis. Okay, let me see if I can erase. Again, I wish I had my Chromebook because this would all be much, much faster. This might take me a minute. Oh, I wonder if there's just a way to clear the whole page, everybody. Is there a way to clear the whole page? I don't even know. Some of you probably see clear page. Okay, I don't know how to clear it. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down for a second. Let's try the problems that are actually on the page. So let me go up and let's read these problems. So it says in pea plants, yellow peas are dominant to green peas. So that means that we're going to use the letter Y, capital Y for yellow, because that's the dominant trait. And then green, you don't use the letter G, you use a lowercase y. So you use a lowercase letter of the same trait. So we'll say lowercase y for green. And purple flowers are dominant to white. So we're going to use a capital P for purple. And this is tricky. Make sure that your lowercase p is really little in comparison to the other one. That's what the white, oops, that was supposed to be over white. So white flowers will be a lowercase p, and purple flowers will be a capital P. All right, so let's read what it says. In cross A, it's homozygous purple flowered versus homozygous white flowered. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Homo means capital and capital, so homozygous dominant. So we've got two capital P's and two lowercase p's. And make sure, because the P's look a lot alike, make sure those lowercase letters are really, really clear. And it looks like in this case, 100% of the offspring are going to be capital P, lowercase p. That would be their genotype. And their phenotype, 100% of them will be purple. It doesn't blend because those lowercase p's are recessive. They get hidden whenever they're in combination with the capital P. Okay, so let's try letter B. Heterozygous purple flowered, heterozygous purple flowered. Okay, so that one, I'm going to do a little erasing here. Let's erase this one and erase this one and try it again. So this time we have a capital P and a lowercase p. Well, that looks exactly like the two Punnett squares that we just did up here, where we have a dominant and a recessive. So in this case, you fill them in, capital P, capital P, capital P, lowercase p, capital P, lowercase p, and two lowercase p's. And it's asking for, here it says, give the predicted phenotypic. So phenotype is what they, I always tell students to remember phenotype is what they physically look like. Phenotype is what they physically look like. So in this case, we're talking about color of the flower. So they physically look purple or white. Those are your two choices. They never blend in what we've learned so far. They never blend. Okay, let's try letter C, true breeding white flowered. Uh-oh, what does that mean again? True breeding means that the traits are automatically homozygous. Okay, so true breeding white flower would be little p. Oh, and a yellow pea. That's a dihybrid. I didn't realize there were any dihybrid problems, everybody. Now that's fun. Let's try this. So to do a dihybrid problem, give me just a second. I got to read it again. So it's a white flowered yellow pea with a true breeding purple flowered green pea. And they're all true breeding. Okay, give me a second. Let's do some erasing. So you know what that all means. Okay, make that go away. Come on, erase your work. There we go. And come on. I'm sorry that this is slow, everybody. It works so much better on my Chromebook than it does on my laptop with me drawing with my finger. I wish I had my stylus. I could make it go a lot faster. Okay, so the one was true breeding purple. So we're going to make two different squares. One is for the color of the flower and one is for the color of the pea. So let's do the flower over here. So let's do, one was a true breeding purple. I'll make that one across the top. And then it was, the other one was a true breeding white. Here we go, and here we go. And then, let's go back. The other part of it, true breeding white and yellow. So I'm going to put yellow on the side, and we said yellow is dominant and green is recessive. So yellow is going to go on the side with the capital Y's, capital Y, capital Y. And then the other one is green. And so that one will be lowercase y. Don't put a G there. You use the same letter as the dominant trait. Okay, so then we fill these in, and what we'll find is that every time it's going to be a capital and a lowercase. So 100% of their babies, when it comes to color, are going to be capital P, lowercase p. And 100% of their babies, when it comes to the pea color, are going to be capital Y, lowercase y. And we multiply the fractions, which in this case, the fraction is 4 over 4 or 1 over 1. So 1 over 1 times 1 over 1. I know this is kind of dumb. It'll make sense once we get a little bit more complicated. So the odds of their offspring, it's always going to be, so all of their babies are going to be a capital P, lowercase p when it comes to color. So that means they're purple, but they're heterozygous. And 100% of their babies are also going to have yellow P's because they're going to be capital Y, lowercase y. All right, so let's try some other stuff. Let's erase and see what other things. This eraser does not work as well as it should. I hope you're speeding it up. I'll go as fast as I can. Make it go away. Is not as efficient as I'd like it to be. All right, let's try again. So let's take a look at letter D. Heterozygous purple flowered, heterozygous yellow pea. I'll do that one first. So I'll do those across the top. So heterozygous purple flowered, heterozygous yellow pea. Let's try that. Heterozygous purple flowered, so capital P and lowercase p. And heterozygous yellow, I think it said. I better double check that, but capital Y and lowercase y. That's one flower. I'm on letter D right now. And then the other one was heterozygous purple, heterozygous yellow. So they're both the same in that way. So this is all heterozygous. This is as complicated as they ever get, which is not terribly complicated. So big P, little p here, and a big Y, little y. Never ever mix the colors. So every Punnett square is for a single trait. So this Punnett square is for the color of the pea. This Punnett square is for the color of the flower. Never put Y's over here, never put P's over there. So now these are both going to be heterozygous. So there's going to be lots of variation. Big P, big P, little p. Let me get that in. Now's where the math is going to start coming in. And it's not difficult math at all, but this is where it gets a little bit trickier. So the odds of the purple color or the white color has to be multiplied with the odds of the yellow or the green color. So let me get this filled in and then we'll show you what we mean. Just a second. So these two are going to be heterozygous. So all these guys are yellow. Everybody who's got a capital Y is yellow. And only this box here would be green. Okay, so this takes some time to write, and I want you to kind of get the hang of it. So let's do the genotypes first. What are the different possible genotypes for the offspring? Well, they could be capital P, which is, and that's supposed to be capital P's. That's really hard to tell. That's 1 out of 4 is a capital P. And they could be, they could have a capital Y, a capital Y, lowercase y, or a little y. So let's just try capital Y. Let's just see what happens. So if they were this is as hard as it ever gets, everybody. Big Y, and that's 1/4. So we multiply it together. So 1/4 times 1/4 is 1/16. So look at how we write it. Big P, big Y. The odds of having that is 1/16. I'm not going to show you every single one because we don't have enough time. Oh, that didn't work very well. And so we write that is, 1/16. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's try big P, big Y, little y. So similar, we're starting with the same one, big P. We're going to try every single combination, but not now because it'll take us forever on this video. So I'm not going to do every single possible combination. I'm just trying to show you some stuff. So what are the odds that it would be big P, big Y, little y? So the big P is still 1/4, but what are the odds of being big Y, little y? That's 50%, 1 out of 2 this time. So now we multiply 1/4 times 1/2, and I'm not going to write it, but big P, big P, big Y, little y would be 1/8, the odds of that. So you need to write the whole thing out. I'm not going to do this with my finger because it is tedious, people. Okay, so we could do every single possible combination. So listen carefully. I could do, what are the odds of big P, little p with big Y? What are the odds of big P, little p with big Y, little y? What are the odds of big P, little p with little y? So those are all the possible genotypes. Now we could then look at what are the odds of the different phenotypes, so what they look like. So remember, if anybody has inherited a capital P, they're going to be purple. And if anybody's inherited a capital Y, they're going to be yellow. So there's a lot fewer phenotypes than there are possible genotypes. So give me just a second to get it all erased. So let's try it. What are the odds of having a purple? You gotta write the word purple. Oh, it would be faster, actually. Let's undo that. Let's do text box. This will be faster. What are the odds of purple, purple flower and yellow pea? What are the odds of that? So we would take, how many purple flowers are there? 1, 2, 3. So that's 3/4. So if I write here, 3/4 for purple flower. And what are the odds of having a yellow pea? That's also 3/4, right? 3 of the 4 boxes are going to have yellow peas. So 3 times 3 is 9. And then 4 times 4 is 16. So 9 out of 16. There's a 9 out of 16 chance that they're going to have offspring that are purple flowered yellow pea. So we could do every single combination: white flower, yellow pea, white flower, green pea, purple flower, green pea, all of those. And then we multiply the totals up. And you should get a total of 16. So 16 up here, that's how you know that you've done it correctly. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at number 2. You have a purple flowered pea plant. You do not know its genotype. Diagram the test cross you would conduct to determine the plant's genotype and what results you would expect if the plant was heterozygous and if the plant was homozygous. Okay, purple flowered plant. So watch what we would do here. Let me do some quick erasing. Oh, no, eraser. So if we had a purple plant and we didn't know whether it was homozygous or heterozygous, we would do something called a test cross. A test cross means mate it with a homozygous recessive. So watch what would happen. I'm going to put the homozygous recessive over here. So here's the little p, little p. These are the white flower. I'm going to mate it with a white flower. And I'm going to do it over here too. These are separate. These are not intended to be multiplied together. This is just a completely different idea. So we know that our test flower, the flower that we're looking at, is purple. So we know it has a capital P. But the question is, what's its second letter? Is the second letter a dominant capital P again, or is the second letter a lowercase p? So if the second letter is a capital P, what would we expect from the results? Well, every time it'd be capital P with lowercase p. So we would have 100% purple, right? All of the offspring would be purple. But now what would happen in the next box if the purple flowered plant that we were looking at wasn't homozygous but was heterozygous? What would happen to the odds now? We'd have half of the plants would be purple with a capital P and a lowercase p, so that would be 50%. But what do you notice about the other half? We'd have 2 little p's. So the results would be 50% purple and 50% white. So the test cross allows us to figure out this second letter, whether that second letter was a capital P, a dominant trait, or a recessive trait. Okay, next, number 3. You are studying 5 traits in Pentids, an Amazonian flying beetle. Hey, you know what? I think I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch me erase anymore. Give me a second to erase everything, and then I'll restart the video. Okay, I'm back. I could not find the delete annotations, and I just found it right here. Delete all annotations. Now I don't have to erase in front of you. You're probably like, duh, KJ, we saw that an hour ago. I never saw it. Okay, you are studying 5 traits. Ooh, that means we're going to have to multiply a whole bunch of things in a whole bunch of Punnett squares. Unfortunately, I only have 4 Punnett squares on my screen, so I'm going to have to draw another Punnett square. But let's try doing 1 and see how we do. Okay, so you're studying 5 traits in Pentids, an Amazonian flying beetle. You have identified each trait as belonging to separate alleles located on separate chromosomes and have categorized those alleles as A, B, C, D, and E, respectively. After years of controlled breeding experiments, you have developed your Pentid lines to the point where you can control their genotypes with certainty. You perform the following cross. Predict the probability of recovering offspring of each of the following genotypes from this parental cross. All right, well, let's try it. So we're going to have one, let's look at the A trait. Under the A trait, one parent is big A, little a, and the other parent is big A, big A. So let's do that right here. Drawing, big A, big A. Oh no, the first one is big A, little a, right? Big A, little a. I got to remember all this. And big A, big A. Okay, so that's one cross. The next one is big B, little b, and little b, little b. So let's do that over here. Big B, little b, and then two little b's. Good, and let's do the next one. It says big C, little c, and big C, big C. So big C, little c, and little c, little c. I think I did that right. Make sure. Big C, big C. Oh, no, it was two big C's. Silly me. Let's fix that. 1, 2, and make those two big C's. Big C and big C. Good. And then let's see, for the D's, we had two heterozygotes, capital, lowercase, capital, and lowercase. And then for the last one, I'll just hand draw this one. Sloppier than ever. This is one ugly video, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, and it says big E, little e, so heterozygous and heterozygous. Okay, so now I'm not going to fill in every single one because that'll take us ages since I'm drawing with my finger, but we can still make a point. So it's asking us, what are the odds? Let's see if I can highlight. Can I highlight? Is that a highlighter? What are the odds that we'll get capital A, little a, big B, little b, big C, little c, big D, and big E, little e? So the question is, what are the odds that every single trait will be heterozygous? That we're going to get a baby beetle that is heterozygous for every trait? All we have to do is multiply the probabilities. So let's take a look. So in this first box, what are the odds of a baby that is heterozygous? Well, these two boxes would be capital A, lowercase a. So in that case, I'm going to go back to drawing, and I'm just going to make it small. 1/2. There's a 1/2 chance that the A's will be capital A, lowercase a. Over here, same thing. 1/2. Capital B, lowercase b would be 1/2. That 50% of their babies would be heterozygous. On this one, same thing. 50% of their babies would be heterozygous. Let's look over here. Yep, this one will be heterozygous, and this one will be heterozygous. So again, 50%. And then finally on this one, same thing, 50%. So that's just a coincidence, but all of them are 50%. So now we multiply all of them together. 1/2 times 1/2 is a quarter, times 1/2 is an eighth, times 1/2 is a 16th, times 1/2 is 1/32. So 1/32, the odds are 1 out of 32. And let's double check at the answers. Oh, it didn't give answers to all the rest of them, but 1/32 for that one. 1/32 is the odds of that. Let's try another one. I'm not going to do all of them with you, but let's try this one now. Big A, little a, big B, little b. I'm going to have to write it down or I'm going to forget it. See if it's any different than the one we just did. So capital A, capital B, little b, little c, capital D, little d, and little e, little e. Okay. So give me a second to quickly erase. I wonder if I did back. Can I make them go away? Hey, that's working too. Okay, so let's try this. So let's do, what are the odds? The first one was capital A, little a, so this is 1/2 again. And the next one was capital B, little b again, so that's 1/2 again. The next one was two little c's. Ruh-roh. What are the odds that they'll have two little c's? That's a 0, KJ. So the answer for that one is 0% chance. We don't have to go any further. It is impossible for them to ever have this particular offspring, this one here, because they will never have a baby that is little c, little c. Okay, everybody, I hope that was enough of an introduction, and I hope that you played this really fast. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.